Hi everyone, it's Friday today. I finished drawing my page for the day and I've got about an hour before I leave for work this evening, so I thought I'd really quickly talk into the camera a little bit about what I'm up to. Um, Very tired at the moment. I've been kind of drawing every day, trying to get the first 25% of my book finished. And I'm very close. It's Friday today, by Tuesday it should be done, which is great. But I am feeling quite tired. It's quite a relentless pace, and it doesn't help that my theatre job that I do 3 days a week, all the shows that are on at the moment are ridiculously long. The one that I'm working on tonight for the first time is 3 hours and 40 minutes long, and that's been cut down. Originally on the first preview it was 4 hours 20 minutes, I think, which is just insane. So I'm lucky that I haven't had to work on it on the first few previews. But as I say, I kind of draw all day at home and then go to a shift in the evening, Mondays and Fridays, and then I do another one in the week as well. So when the shift is that long, that's kind of a very long day. I'll finish work probably at 11, and I'll get home at about 11:40 or something. But then it's the weekend, so I'll be able to rest up a little bit. I'll still be drawing a little bit each day, but not too much. The book's going well. I've got some time lapses of work in progress to show you in a little bit, and I'm still really enjoying it. It'll just be exciting once I get a bit more of it kind of completed and I can relax a little bit. Last weekend was quite strange. The Sunday was quite a strange day. It was Super Bowl Sunday, and as I've mentioned on the vlog before, that's something I usually watch with my boyfriend. I've done that for the last few years. And if you live in the UK, that involves staying awake quite late. So we were quite excited for that. And I was sitting in my studio drawing during the afternoon, trying to get a few hours done before kind of switching off for the evening. And became more and more aware of a lot of sirens and a lot of helicopter noise. And it turned out that there had been a terrorist incident on the high street 5 minutes from my house, which was quite odd. I mean, it's a big, busy road. It's an A road through London, and it's like 6 lanes of traffic, and there's often accidents on the high street. So we do get air ambulances and helicopters landing quite often, and also sirens going past constantly because it's a major sort of thoroughfare. But this was just going on, and it was kind of obvious that something big was happening. And we started to get news of what it was coming through Twitter by searching on Twitter. And it was just very odd. I mean, these things do happen from time to time in London, but they're usually in central London, pretty central locations. So it seemed like a weird kind of out of the way place for it to happen. But it was very sad for everybody involved. I mean, I'm just glad that the 2 people that were attacked are okay so far. They've made it. It was lucky that the guy that started to attack people on the high street was under police surveillance at the time, so they got to him almost immediately before he could actually kill anybody. So that was a relief to find that out. But yeah, it was just quite a strange atmosphere to be sitting drawing my book with all this going on kind of outside. But then watching the Super Bowl was really lovely after that, because it was a good game. It was really fun, and it just provided a bit of kind of fun at the end of a strange day. And I was very happy for Kansas City to win. Trying to think what else I can talk about. I've got a new knitting project I can probably show you a little bit of later. Very early stages, but it's nice to get something underway that I can work on at the weekends when I'm not doing quite as much drawing. And it's for somebody else, which is always quite nice. I've knitted lots of jumpers for myself and lots of cardigans and all sorts, so it's kind of nice to do something for someone else, and it means that it's something I wouldn't necessarily normally do. Like, the patterns and the colours are going to be something that's quite interesting and not my usual style, so that's really cool. I'll show you some of that in a bit. So this is the knitting project that I'm going to show you very briefly. I say briefly because there's not a lot to show at the moment. I haven't done very much on it, what with all my work at the moment. The challenge with this is a vintage cardigan knitting pattern that I found online and I'm going to make for my partner. And the issue with it was that the gauge seemed all wrong for the kind of yarn that the pattern specified. And I also didn't want to use yarn that was as thick as the pattern specified. So my friend Katie has been showing me how to kind of rework a project, find out the gauge that I have for the yarn that I do want to use, which is my little swatch here, and then kind of redraft the pattern based on the measurements of the final garment that I want, which is what I have here. So that involved figuring out my gauge, that's how many stitches per centimetre I have when I knit using the yarn that I want to use, measuring how many stitches I get, then also measuring what the final garment size is going to be. I printed out graph paper that I made using Photoshop, and then I basically had to recreate the pattern that was on the knitting pattern, but so that it fit this sheet of paper, which is it's not quite to scale, but the number of squares on the sheet represent the number of stitches on the final garment, and then work out how the pattern's going to look. So that's as far as I've got so far. I ordered some yarn for it that I didn't end up liking, so the next stage is just to find a yarn that's going to work for this colour-wise. So the last time I recorded a bit to camera, the bit that was at the start of this episode, I think I mentioned that I'd finished 40 pages of my graphic novel, which is the first quarter of the book. Well, it's now 2 weeks later and I finished 60 pages. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my plan for kind of getting through the work and what I've been doing over the last 2 weeks. So my plan was, I kind of had this idea of having a really intensive 2 weeks. I do 2 afternoon shifts at my day job every week, and those really cut into my working time at home. Even though I only work an afternoon, with the journey times and the getting ready for work and stuff, that kind of really cuts into that 1 day a week that I do that, meaning that I can only really work for a couple of hours in the morning and then in the evening when I get home if I'm not too tired. So I booked those 2 afternoons off. And I decided I was going to make a list of what I thought were the 20 quickest pages to draw from my book. And I thought I'm just going to try and bang through those 20 pages as fast as I can, which gets me to a total of 60 finished. My book is 160 and I've got 4 months left till my deadline, which means 25 pages per month left to get to the deadline. And I thought that would be a nice kind of number to get to. And I'm happy to report that it worked well. I sit here today having just finished the 60th page, so I got my 20 pages finished in 2 weeks. It was quite a lot of work because to finish 10 pages a week, my total before that, where I was doing kind of 5 to 6 pages a week and kind of struggling to get that done. So, but I did, as I said, to make this happen, I chose the quickest pages. There's a lot of pages in my book that just have like 3 panels on them, or they're full page illustrations, and those tend to be quicker than the sort of pages with a lot of panels, a lot of figure drawing to do. So yeah, I just got through them really fast and I'm really pleased. I filmed a little bit of drawing of one of them, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So yeah, I mean, comics are a very intensive, kind of labour-intensive art form. So I do kind of, when I'm in this deadline phase, like I am at the moment, counting down the last 4 months, I'm working every day. I'm drawing every day for as many hours as I can. I'm drawing in the evenings and weekends. I try and keep weekend work to a minimum. I do a maximum of sort of an hour and a half to 2 hours on weekend days, just to kind of give me a bit of time to recover. But yeah, it's very full on. I don't take any days off. There's no kind of thinking I don't feel like it today, I'm just not going to do it. So yeah, it's kind of full on. And that doesn't leave a lot of room for, unexpected things that might crop up, or if I get ill, things like that, you just have to hope aren't going to happen. Speaking of getting ill, we also had a little thing. My partner had a medical thing, had to have some tests in hospital, and had quite a few doctor's appointments. And he's fine, but yeah, all that was sort of going on over these last 2 weeks as well. But yeah, it's all okay, so I'm very relieved about that. A friend of mine gave me a really lovely treat last week. She babysits some puppies, and she brought them round to my house for a little visit, because she knew how hard I was working and that it would be kind of a fun distraction just for an hour. She was very good about it and said, I'll just pop in for 1 hour. You can play with the puppies and kind of relax. So I'll show you a tiny bit of that. It was very hard to film them because they move so quickly, but I've got a little bit of footage. I found time to do a tiny bit of baking. I like to try and do a little bit of my hobbies and things that I enjoy, just to keep myself sane. So I baked a new recipe. The first try was a bit of a disaster and I threw it away, but the second one worked out well. I can show you that. Oh, I found that I got into LCAF, which is the East London Comic Art Festival. I've had couple of years in a row where I didn't get in, so that was really nice news. It's always a really good festival, so if you're thinking of coming, don't forget to look for me and come and say hello. I'm still waiting to hear about whether I've got into Thought Bubble, but hopefully find out about that soon. We've had some terrible weather in the UK over the last few weeks. There's been a different storm kind of coming in every single weekend. So yeah, for the last 3 weekends in a row, we've had a bunch of storms, awful weather, tiny bit of snow the other day, but not very much. I know I always show rain and things in my vlogs, but I kind of enjoy that. Like, I find that when I take photos sometimes of my experiences, my holidays and things, I always wait for good weather and try and take pictures when the sun's shining and everything looks nice. But I've kind of been enjoying in these vlogs documenting some of the worse weather that we have in this part of the world. So I could show you some of that as well. The only other thing I've got to say is that if you're interested in following along with my book progress and process, I do weekly posts about it on Patreon, which you can access for just $2 a month. So if you're interested in seeing how the book unfolds on a kind of week by week basis and seeing snippets of the finished art, I also post 2 pages a month of finished story, being very careful not to post anything that's kind of spoilery that would spoil anyone's enjoyment of the finished book when it's finally out. But if you do want to have a look, yeah, you can see what I'm up to on there. I write about my process in quite a lot of detail. So this is a loaf of bread I've just baked in the oven. I bake a lot of bread almost once a week in my bread machine, but I bake this in the oven. A friend of mine gave me a bread recipe book, and this actually has potato and bacon inside it. And I've been meaning to get more into baking, sort of using the machine to prepare dough, but then baking in the oven. So this is a good experiment. My first version of this failed terribly, but I didn't have the right tin to bake it in, and I tried to kind of improvise and it didn't really work. So in a minute I'll cut this open and let you know how it is. So I couldn't wait. I'm gonna have to try it, I think. There's still a little bit of steam coming off it. I don't know if you can see that. And I can see little bits of bacon in there. I'm gonna have to try a slice. That is really, really good.